and like doing less stupid stuff with their money.
Yeah, Josh just want the lifestyle experience of a billionaire.
I mean, nice thing is when you have personal accountant money, you're not sweating those coffees or those bubble gums.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
It's the Viral Ideas Podcast with Josh and Runda.
hello to all viral creators around the world. Today, we have Thomas Battle with us, who is an expert in FinTech. I don't want to waste anyone's time. Thomas, tell us a bit about yourself, and then let's jump into those ideas.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Runda. We're super excited to be here. As Josh was saying, my name is Thomas. I have been working on startups for the last decade. After finishing my MBA, where all of my other friends and people going through my program went to the banks and the consultants, I decided to throw my hat into the startup world. My first startup was actually a retail tech. We were building touchscreen mirrors for retail and hospitality, launched with some pretty cool brands like Lululemon, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, went through some top-notch Silicon Valley accelerator programs. Before I then moved on to work with Neo Financial, which pivoted me into this fintech space. I worked there for 9 months while advising this small upcoming startup called Flamingo, which is doing real-time fractional investing. So allowing Canadians to buy and sell as little as $1 of up to 5,000 different equities on the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ. And then from there, we built that startup. We ended up exiting it. And then myself and the CTO, we had become really close. And we had built this team up over a period of 3 years, building really cool technology within the highly regulated Canadian investing space. And we decided we wanted to keep going. We wanted to keep doing this. And so we went out, we found our first client that was reimagining how we do banking here in Canada. We closed them. They brought our team on for a 12-month exclusive contract. And we then delivered, and we're still building with them. But we decided, hey, we're adding a ton of value here. We're building something really cool. Where else within the fintech space can we continue to provide our expertise and continue to help build, bringing that startup mindset to bring some really cool products to life?
That's a wicked founder story, Thomas. I think that's where when I first met you, when you were telling me about Flamingo, that's where I was like, wait, what? Like, how did you even pull that off? It sounds like it's just got to be such a difficult thing to break into, just doing any type of financial technology thing, especially in Canada. So yeah, that's really interesting.
Absolutely. And it made it worse that we were all relatively young. To really break into this regulated space, they want you to all have like multiple decades within the space for them to really trust you. And so we were really trying to navigate this narrow pathway to market, that working with a couple of key providers within the regulatory space who are trying to push for more innovative products, bringing them to market faster and with lower capital costs in order to do it. But it's incredibly hard. There are barriers kind of everywhere along the way, and to try and build something and launch something with less than $5 to $10 million worth of capital raised is incredibly challenging.
So do you want to jump into your first idea?
Yeah, okay, cool. So as I said, so my first idea that we're trying to figure out how we make work is this concept of everyone should be able to quickly and easily launch a fintech product, right? Whether that's an investing platform, banking platform. The tech side of this should not be what's keeping you up at night. You're still going to have the regulatory side, and I can't fix that right now. But I would love to solve this problem where you have to spend a ton of money hiring a tech team and then designing and building a product, when in reality, most fintech applications are a really snazzy front end with a whole bunch of back-end integrations. Because if you think about a Wealthsimple, a Coho, what they are is you have an onboarding journey right? And part of that onboarding journey is a KYC provider, which is, for those who don't know, is know your customer, right? So we're going to take a look at your ID. We're going to take a look at your selfie and a video and make sure that you are who you say you are and that you're actually human. This is a massive space, and there are companies that are just focused on this, right? And there are a number of different providers that are doing it and are doing it well. Then there are providers focused on money movement, ledgering systems, banking as a service model, investing, brokerages. There are a number of people that are doing these well, and any fintech that wants to start up here in Canada is probably not going to go after their banking license right away. Like Coho, even after years of being in market, is only now going through the banking process, and it costs a lot of money. So what you're going to do is you're going to partner with a number of these third-party providers that provide part of your solution. And even if you have something innovative, you're still going to need these different providers. And everyone kind of needs the same providers, even if their core differentiator is going to be different. It's going to be slightly different. So the concept that I'm looking to build, and this comes from our journey at Flamingo and our journey building product for other fintechs, is to start building a really modular drag and drop architecture for these third-party providers that are all backend, right? There's no reason you shouldn't be able to go and spin up a front end. You say, okay, I want an application that does full onboarding. It has a banking product that gives you a checking account, savings account, debit card. And these are the 3 or 4 different providers I want to do. Our team has already gone and integrated with most of them, either for ourselves or for one client or another. If we were to build out this modular front end that allows you to kind of like drag and drop and place things, then all of a sudden you don't have this barrier to entry of technology, right? And while none of this is, there are challenges, but the challenges are really around understanding the regulatory space. The technology piece just takes time. It takes time to do it, and it takes time to do it right, and to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. So you're basically saying, to boil all of this down, it's kind of like Squarespace or Bubble maybe, but specifically for fintech products, because they all kind of need the same infrastructure. And I guess these are probably coming in the forms of APIs, and that all comes together to create most fintech products.
That's right. Yeah, because they're just common pieces that all of them need, right? And that's mandated by the regulators, right? The regulators want to see that you are doing these different things and that you're doing them well, right? And so just to play the game, you need to have these pieces in place, and everyone needs it.
So why do you think this hasn't been done yet?
I think there are a couple of different reasons. So the people who are the third-party vendors themselves are focusing on their niche. And as any good startup, you should really focus on your niche. You can't do everything from the beginning. And because they're only focusing on their little piece, they're going to be doing it through backend APIs, right? They just want to play in their space, and they're going to do it well. I would say that is kind of the main driver behind it. Some people have tried. And some people do it well. VoPay is a really good example of someone who has built out the entire infrastructure and has started to have a kind of like build your own application, but it's all built on their stack, right? If you are tied into VoPay's technology and weren't going to be able to mix and match depending on your use case. And so getting back to answer your question, the reason I don't think anyone has done this before is just because it's such a wide area, and there's a lot to do here, and people tend to want to focus on their niche.
So this is something that is this more for an already venture-backed startup, or is this for somebody who's trying to build like a prototype?
So I think it's for people who initially want to start with a prototype MVP. There's no reason that this couldn't at some point be open source or allow teams to build upon it. The value of here is getting to market faster and at less cost. You have to invest less in an engineering team, and you'll be able to ignore some of the pitfalls, like, hey, we integrated with this tool, it's not doing what we wanted to, we're going to have to redo the integration, right? Where you spend a lot of time, a lot of money going back and forth doing those types of things, which is kind of how it is. So I see they see this starting at the startup level. There's a high likelihood that unless we make this open source, you're going to have to rebuild it later on. Once you have that product market fit, you're going to want to start customizing it in a lot way. And if we have a drag and drop tool, and this is one of the things about no code, right, is that when you create something to be easily replicable, easily spun up, you're just not going to have the customization that you would if you were building it from scratch. And it's just the trade-off that you have. So that does bring up that interesting point, though, that is there a way that at some point when a company is ready to take it on themselves, they've already built this, that this isn't just okay, we have to scrap everything and start from zero. There's definitely a way to do that.
Okay. For the billing of this, how do you see that working?
My co-founder and I, we have been mulling this over actually for a while. This has been an idea that we've been bouncing back and forth. We really like it. And our goal actually is to build it with our clients, right? So if we take on a client, we provide them a discount that allows us to share the IP, and we build in a very modular way. Oh, we've built this for you. Now we can take that functionality. We're going to make it modular. We're going to make it drag and drop. And you're going to be able to use this, but we're also going to be able to take this and build this into our own solution that we spin out for new clients. And I think that's the easiest way. I've done the fundraising. I've raised whole bunches of money in multiple companies now. For my current company, Midas Labs, we are really trying to go the bootstrap route, right? Hey, we have this product agency where we are profitable, and we're using those profits to drive the development of different products internally.
That's probably exactly how I would start this thing as well. You got the exact same direction. My go-to-market would have been exactly like serve as a service and then build the initial foundations. So parts of the foundations might not be figured out yet, but just to service as that like builder provider to like an institution, almost like the easiest route in Canada in the local market is credit unions. There are just like so many of them under the same I think it was called Credit One network. They're all pretty much under the same network, but they might not have like the same app platform. I'm with a credit union right now, and then I see like my credit union's web app and software app is just like horrible. It's just ridiculous. And meanwhile, like the larger banks with their online banks, like for example, CIBC, their Simply app looks exactly like CIBC, but just like dressed with a different skin. Like all the layouts are pretty much the same. So like there's efficiencies for larger big banks to just like standardize the same platform that they already spend their money on. I would also like look at retail corporate enterprises, like the companies that are so big that they're providing their own financial services, like Loblaws or Rogers or something like a Canadian Tire. They also do provide financial services now that like to them to just like try out a software provider. I would probably like seek for like an upcoming corporate enterprise partner, whatever that might be, and then just like go down that list, start subsidizing that foundational code to build this modular apps.
And it's interesting that you're looking at those markets, because those markets are very interesting. But for me, the most interesting markets for a thing like this is actually non-tech, non-banking companies that might be able to launch a banking product. So there are two really interesting sectors that I've heard of and I've had conversations about. The first is the trucking industry. So it sounds like from what a conversation that I've had is that the trucking industry is a lot of these truckers are unbanked, right? And so the trucking companies are trying to pay all of their truckers, and it's a hassle, right? And so what they want to do is they want to launch their own banking service internally where they can create for all of their truckers a checking account, and they can push the funding regularly to their truckers, pay them on that platform, don't have to worry about checks, don't have to worry about like dispersing across the country to wherever these guys are, push it to their company account, and they have a card, or they can transfer it out, or they can do what have you. Really interesting plays where you only would get how unbanked this group is if you were deep in it.
There's also the whole side of it with restaurants as well, where a lot of restaurants can't figure out how to just disperse tips. And and then if once they've decided on how they've dispersed their tips, then it's like, "Oh, how do we get this into, like, the actual hands of our employees?" Like, do we just give them cash and we're not reporting anything? Or, are we taking the time to do the paperwork and get it right? And I have seen, like, it basically goes onto a reloadable gift card, and then they give that to their staff, which I feel like is kind of leaning in the direction where, you could sort of see this same thing where there's a micro product that, just exists for employees of a company to, maybe not get all of their payroll, but maybe just a portion of it.
And that's why fintech is so interesting to me, right? It's that we have done money movement and banking so poorly in Canada and the United States that you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? If you can spin up an application, you can focus in on these niche industries to really make a meaningful difference in people's lives. That was what we were trying to do with Flamingo, right? We wanted you to be able to start investing, start building wealth with as little as $1. So people who are just starting on their wealth creation journey can get access to that, right? We didn't need to recreate the stock market to do that. We just needed to be able to spin up an application that allows you to transfer money out to us and start buying and selling on the stock market. I don't need to reinvent a checking account or a debit card to spin up a debit card and point it at a very niche use case and start adding value to people's lives.
Overall, like, that's just such a winner idea, because if this were to exist and, it could kind of point the fintech industry towards the wave of just commodification of software, just allowing people to start their own things. It means that, the ones who really have the best distribution ability for, maybe they already have a large existing number of customers that they're very engaged with, or maybe they just have a very strong marketing team, whatever it is, like, it just shifts initial focuses on starting things up on that, which I think is going to be really likely to push people towards success.
And like, this is why I love the story around liquid death. That's what I'm looking for here. They didn't recreate water, but they found this amazing use case and just killed it on the marketing in such a way that they truly differentiated themselves and grew a massive product.
Do you have any branding ideas on this one before we move on to the next idea?
You don't come to me for branding. I'm the execution guy. Like, my co-founder has been forcing me to name things. That's how we came up with Midas Labs. And I'm just very uncomfortable doing it. I have a network of friends though that I would take this idea to, and they would get very, very excited on the branding side, and I would try and wash my hands of it.
Yeah, I find that's the easiest way to just pick a name for something. Either just go for the most obvious, generic, basic name, or like just ask a friend, and then if you feel good about it, yeah, that's just usually how I do it.
You could spend a lot of time thinking up a name, but the name you pick doesn't matter, because as you grow and as you add value, that value becomes associated with the name, right? Nike, for example, didn't mean anything when they created the name Nike. They grew into that name, and now it's iconic. Same with Google or most of them, right? Half of these words, like, yeah, there's a story behind it, and they can justify it, But it doesn't matter at the end of the day because you're going to grow into that name and it's going to mean something because of the work that you're doing.
You're gonna like the name of my idea that I'm that I've got cooking up here. Moving on, my my idea that I'd like to bring forward, and particularly I want to hear your thoughts on if this is feasible. Like I'd pay like, maybe like $5 a month for this type of thing. So the name of it is Can I Afford That? And I'm talking about a consumer facing app that kind of playing off of the same thing that we've seen with all of these budgeting apps. There's YNAB, and then there was mint.com. But I feel like they're just such a pain to use because you've got to look at all these like spreadsheets and there's so much information to digest. The point of, can I afford that is just give that information to an app like, the bank account, credit card, so you can see the spending of the user and everything. And then just turn that into a very simple interface where somebody just says like, this is the dollar amount of the thing that I'm trying to buy right now. This is what I'm trying to buy. Can I afford that? And then you just get a simple instant. You basically just say yes, no, or maybe. And then, have 3 different colors associated with that and just quickly give people an answer on like, hey, no, like you cannot afford that $1,800 Canada Goose jacket. You just bought another one last month. Like, what are you doing? Then maybe on the yes side, there's just a yes where I think this is where I would pay for this is because sometimes I actually need somebody to say like, yes, you can afford this. Because, if you sort of suffer from just like being able to make quick decisions for whatever reason, sometimes I'll be in the grocery store and I'll be looking at a literal pack of gum and I'm like, can I afford this pack of gum? Like, yes, you can afford the pack of gum. Buy it. You could buy 1,000 of these things this year and you'd be fine. Like just grab it. You might need to use a large language model or something like that to make it into a more complex like, hey, maybe you can buy this, but you need to limit it so that you don't buy it this many times this year or else you're going to like blow a bunch of money on it. So, that's kind of the more complex side of it, but you could just start it out with a simple MVP just being yes or no. So, yeah, my question to you, Thomas, is just like, how would this get built? And like, is it feasible to build? Can I afford that?
I mean, it's super cool. I've struggled with budgeting for a long time, especially when I was deep in my startup days and I was trying to make every penny count. The way I think about this is I think about you need to build really 3 things. You need to build the collection tool. This is the tool that is taking all of your different financial information and processing, or at least storing it within a database. That is challenging, not necessarily from the technical aspect, but from the human aspect, right? I need to make sure that I'm constantly collecting all of your information. We can automate this to a certain amount, so we could connect your bank accounts over with Plaid. Understanding all of your purchases is difficult without that context, right? So you can make 18 different purchases on Amazon, and they're going to show up on your credit card receipt as Amazon. So now you need to upload your receipts and your invoices, and you need to be pretty fastidious. And like we have tools that can connect your purchase to the receipt automatically. You mainly see this for business accounting more than you see it for personal accounting, right? Because obviously there are tax benefits, and you need to be able to report at the end of year how well your company is doing financially, and hopefully you're not underwater. But there is still like the hardest part here is that human element, like because nothing is connected. Collecting those receipts that have all of that really valuable context is important. So that's the first piece that you would need to build or source or find. The second piece, and this is something that you'd have to build because I would think that this is your secret sauce. This is like the truly difficult part to do well, is to build your model. So can I afford this is a very subjective question. It depends not only on your expenses and your real hard costs and what you're spending. It also depends on what are your goals. Like, what are you trying to do with your life? This extra money, is this going to retirement? Is this saving for a house? Is this for a car? What are you comfortable? What are your comfort levels? What is your risk tolerance? All of these things are subjective, and you need to collect this from the user because you have to be working towards something. And you need to find a way to analyze that database and compare it to these goals to make sure that you are meeting those goals, right? And that is going to require a lot of just sitting down and planning and mapping out, right? Even from just a product level. Let's not even worry about technical at that point. Let's figure out that product piece, right? Because this is not something you're going to be updating necessarily every day. You're going to update this once or twice. And then it's going to sit there until you come back and do a check-in and do a gut check and say, hey, am I meeting my goals? Am I not meeting my goals? Have my goals changed? Is there something massive that has happened in my life that is going to change my financial situation? Right? Addition of a new family member, loss of a job, gaining of a new job. These things are going to need to be updated relatively regularly, but not all the time. And then the third piece is probably the easiest piece. And that is just the interface where you're giving the data about what it is you want to buy and getting a response back. It's like, can you do it? Or the next step being, can you do it and why you should or should not do it, right? Because an answer could be, yes, Josh, you can afford that gum. But what is the opportunity cost of that? By buying that gum, you are saving less for retirement, right? Or this is going to put you back, I don't know, X minutes on getting that house or that big purchase that you want to make, right? Which would be a really cool little anecdote, but is kind of that final interface that you would be interacting with on a daily basis that needs to be really easy for you to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like it probably wouldn't be the cheapest or easiest thing to build.
So the answer is I would need to look and see. Once again, this comes down to third-party providers because the fun thing about FinTech is that a lot of people have built out the different pieces, right? And it could very well be that the whole first third of that, which was the database collection, that is most likely actually already done, right? And at that point, there is definitely still some work, but you can probably do that with a solid team of engineers within a couple of months if you've taken the time to really plan it out. So it's definitely doable, but yeah, we would need to do more research on that.
Taking engineering aside, I just got probably one of the most controversial, but definitely viral app experience for this. Instead of the user or an AI model kind of interpreting the subjective interpretation of can you afford that? You make it a social app. And on your profile, you dedicate either a circle of close friends or maybe it's your family members. And then they have a view of how much cash you have on this app. And then they tell the app whether if you can afford that or not.
I mean, do you want your family judging your finances constantly?
Some people,
I guess you can pick who though, right? Like you're not saying it has to be family. Like it just anybody that you choose. So it could be an advisor. It could be an official advisor as well, who is,
I don't know. I
into
kind of like the public shaming of everyone in your immediate circle can look at your purchases and be like, Runda, you can't afford that. What are you even thinking throwing that up there?
And then I might just go against your wishes if I truly couldn't afford that, but I would buy that anyways. That's just a public voting.
And then you need a brag button. You need to be able to shout that out. It's I ignored all of it.
See, I did afford it.
Look, I bought it anyways. I financed it.
Cause that's what's interesting about at least finances is just that the social norms is to keep it personal and private. But what's the greatest thought back on how Venmo got viral? It was the public payments of transactions that you're sending transactions to friends. And then you can actually see how much who sent to who, even though it's random strangers. So if you make it as whatever is controversial or like kind of thought provoking in that experience, maybe you would actually have the core loyal customer base initially to just like hop on and test it around, just to show that, oh yeah, hey mom, I really was able to buy this couch, and then now I'm $500 in debt.
Okay, so actually, now that I'm thinking about it and I'm processing it, there's this really interesting like synonymous type piece here, right? Where, hey, look, guys, I have an issue with spending, with gambling, with whatever, right? I need help. I'm reaching out to you guys to help support me and motivate me to make good financial decisions, right? Now we've twisted it, right, from being public shaming, which I think is its own fun type of thing, but like to, okay, we're really going to support someone that we really care about in starting to make good decisions around their lives. And it also allows people, providers, to be able to step in and support if they see someone is going down the wrong route, right? Like to the best that they can, right? They now know, oh, look, I've been looking at your spending, and I know that in a short little while, I'm going to have to step in and I'm going to have to help because I care, right? And so that's another, I think, like twist on this that is just a rebranding exercise with the same core tool. I think I like that a lot.
Yeah, the idea is really just rooted in the idea that there's if a third party can help you make a decision faster on something. Whether that may be a real person or, sometimes, you know, I think like for a large purchase, like this already exists. Just go onto Reddit and you'll find all of these sub communities about personal finance, and you'll see tons of people going in and saying, I'm thinking about buying a new car. Should I do this or should I not? A lot of people just really get a kick out of being involved in someone else's like big life decision. So they will usually these are pretty active threads where you'll have like, dozens of people giving their insights to a complete anonymous stranger, just saying like, okay, well, do you have any credit card debt? Where do you live? Why do you need this car? You end up just getting a lot of info from there. But yeah, I guess like just for what also matters though is the really small decisions, like the packs of gum and the coffees and stuff like that, where, they're too far on one side where they're just blowing like actually concerning amounts of money on these like little treats that they get for themselves. But then on the other hand, there's also a lot of people who are just like overly frugal. And it's just like, listen, like this purchase that you're thinking over right now has absolutely no bearing on your financial future. Like, don't worry about it. Just buy it. I really like tools that help just like make decisions faster. That's where I was coming from.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely something here. I think it's a really cool idea. I've been looking for a tool like this for a while. One of the things, if I were to go and try and launch this and build this, is I'd want to know like why this doesn't already exist, right? Because I know like mint.com is a great example. I want to know why. Like I haven't looked deep into that. I tried using them for a while. I used a couple of other tools, but it was always for me, the hardest part was that hassle of constantly needing to update them with the different things. If you're not doing it, then you don't have an accurate snapshot of your financial situation.
Yeah, they're just too bloated. There's a lot of things on the market. Like I think Mint, they probably just realized it wasn't feasible to run it because they weren't charging for it. But now there's a lot of paid things on the market that seem like they're quite popular. I feel like there's just should be something that is a less, intense snapshot where, you've got pie charts and grids and line graphs and everything, which is cool, but me personally, I'm overwhelmed by it. I don't want that. I just want a simple yes or no in the moment. Almost as if like if I was like a billionaire, then I could probably, just hire someone to do this for me. And I'm sure that this is a job that exists for people who serve like, very wealthy clients to just tell them like, yes, you can or can't afford this thing. But if there's a way to bring that experience to just normal people, then everybody would be making just probably much easier decisions on things and like doing less stupid stuff with their money. Nobody said like, hey, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, Josh just want the lifestyle experience of a billionaire.
I mean, nice thing is when you have personal accountant money, you're not sweating those coffees or those bubble gums.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, if you're already like getting this service, then those little things won't matter. But there are still people who need to hear that because I mean, how many creators are going on the internet? These like finance creators, and they're just they love to just shame young people into being like, you go to Starbucks every day and you have avocado toast. That's why you don't have any money. But no young person is going to connect with someone older than them telling that, oh, like you should just be saving your money on these things. It's like, hey, rent was like 1/4 of what it is right now. Like when you did this, like we're in a complete different world now. So, the answers from 20 years ago are definitely not the same answers from right now. The more that people say like, oh, young people shouldn't be like having these little like treats that they get, that in itself is just like making the culture like even stronger. And now people are just like, man, like every purchase that I make is a bad purchase. So whatever, like I'm just gonna make any purchase I want.
When the system is so against you and you can't afford to live anyway, right? Then what does it matter if you make one more bad financial decision? It's just another drop in the bucket of the hole that you're digging yourself into. If you're making less than a living wage anyway, and you don't know whether you're going to have to choose between feeding yourself and rent, then at some point, right, like there's this despair there. Like you can't go to someone who is making 30K, 35K in a high cost of living city and say, well, don't you buy those coffees? You're not going to be able to save. Like they're set up for failure at that point. And so we need to figure out how do we deal with that as a society, because you can have as many budgeting apps as you want. But I mean, for those types of people, it'll be a very easy thing. Is this a luxury? You probably can't afford it, but maybe you want to get it anyway because that cup of coffee brings you joy and helps get you through the day.
Yeah. Okay, well, I am really happy with the feedback you gave there. I think this is an interesting one, and it also sounds like, if you think it could get built in a couple months, then that means that if someone who's out there that does have the capital to, get something like this built, it's not like a super low-hanging fruit idea, but you could definitely charge people $5 to $10 per month for something like this. And it's definitely a mass market idea that you could probably push on, like just on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, like product that could just be inherently viral because it's like, hey, basically live like a billionaire, but you could actually be totally broke. Like even if you're sweating $1 purchases, like this is for you. So Thomas, do you have any other fresh ideas cooking up that
Yeah.
you've wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I got one more idea to throw your way and get everyone's opinion. And we're going to get the solution that I've come. Okay, I'm going to start from the beginning. Over my career, I've realized that the hardest part about building a company is not the technology. It's not necessarily even the regulatory part. It's not fundraising. It's people. All of those things can be solved. In many ways, it's logical, right? Like there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer, even if you don't know what that is at the time, right? You can think through it. The hardest part about building any company is people, because we as the human race are emotional, right? And that's one of our biggest strengths, but it's also one of the things that is most difficult for us to deal with. So this idea is going to move a little bit away from fintech and more into like this agency space that I've been working in. And it's within the context of building an engineering team, how do you bring people together and make sure that everybody understands exactly what is going on and everyone is bought in? This is really hard in technology because technology for a lot of people is just black magic, right? Like it either works or it doesn't work, and you don't really know why, right? My phone is this magical box that runs my life, but like I have a very surface level understanding of what it's doing in the background, right? And that's super common for a lot of people to just not understand, even in the startup space, right? Like even CEOs or product people don't understand the technology piece. And if you don't understand the technology and what goes in to building technology, and I'm talking to you've actually gone out there and built it, it's really hard to understand an engineering team. Because the problem with an engineering team is that every time you build something new, even if you feel like you've done it before, there's something new that's going on that unless you spend a ton of time researching and understanding every edge case and use case, is going to make one build very different from another build, right? So if I want to do money movement, so if I want to build out Interact e-transfer into my application, and I want to build out EFTs, electronic funds transfers, right? Both are a type of money movement. Both get money from point A to point B. There are different times and different methods from how you do it. But building those two things are completely different. So you can't go and say, hey, look, it took us 1 month to build Interact e-transfers. It's going to obviously take 1 month to build EFTs. You can't do it. It doesn't work. There's too many unknowns. And unless you built that exact same thing before, it's very difficult to tell how long it's going to take. And even if you do, any number of things could go wrong during it that change the timeline, right? So I've given a lot of setup here. But what I want to do is I want to build out a tool, and we've already started this on our end because we started doing it for ourselves, that allows both technical and non-technical people to understand what is going on within the engineering team. So the way we tackled this is we started at kind of like one of the lower levels of what's happening within engineering. Do you guys know what a pull request is? No. Okay, cool. So at a very like simplified level, anytime something is ready to go to production, you need to have someone on your team who okays that feature or that piece of code before it goes live. And it'll often go through a whole number of different environments in which you have a bunch of QA and you have a bunch of testing. But before it even gets there, you have what is called a pull request. And this is just the engineer taking a bunch of their code and pushing it out for review, and then so it can be merged into the next environment, right? At hopefully a really smaller level. Now, right now, in most of the cases, it's a very manual process. Engineer writes the code, pushes it up for a senior engineer to review. The senior engineer reviews it, provides feedback, and either passes it or rejects it. We, within our organization, we're running into this issue where we had about like this backlog of 20 or 30 pull requests. And our senior engineers, they either had to do their job or just be reviewing pull requests, right? And so how do we close the feedback loop? And we built an LLM tool that reviewed them, provided immediate feedback, and scored these pull requests so that our engineers could either take this back, right, and fix it, or it goes on and the senior engineers can very quickly approve this because it's already been pre-vetted. So we had built this for ourselves. We'd been working with this for 8 months. And what I realized within this tool that we built and implemented internally is now we're reviewing pretty much every line of code that our company is outputting, right? We're reviewing it, we're providing feedback, and we're scoring. All of a sudden, with that information, what I realized is we now have an insight into our engineering team that we've never had before. And now we can theoretically package all of this up, turn it into a dashboard, and all of a sudden we start having a report card on how our engineering team is doing. How quickly are we developing code? What is the quality of the code that we are pushing to production? Are our engineers, are they doing really well, right? And theoretically, if we scale this and we put this on multiple companies, right, we can start benchmarking against other companies within. And then the final piece that I want to do with this technology, in addition to the dashboard, in addition to the report card, which makes it really easily accessible for CEOs and CTOs to take a look at their engineering team, I want to be able to build a reward system that gives you points for doing really good work, right? So we're automatically rewarding and engaging our engineers when they're doing good work. Or if they need a little extra help, right, and we're identifying that because the quality of their code isn't where we expect it to be, then, and this isn't like a retaliatory big brother situation, but we go in and we start saying, hey, look, do you need a little extra help? Can we help you? How do we help you? Where do we get to that next level? And so this is a tool that me and a couple of our team members have been kind of playing around with for the last little while. I'd love to get your thoughts.
So basically, is this something for agencies to use to better communicate with their clients?
I think it's for anyone who has an engineering team, right? You have an agency that could show their clients, hey, look, this is how well we're doing, right? Keep paying us to do your work because look at how well we're doing said work. But also, I think that anyone who has an engineering organization, it's hard to keep track, especially when you get to a certain size. If you have 30, 40, 100 developers or more, right? How do you stay on top of what all your engineers are doing and how well you're doing? It's really difficult. And if you have a tool that is providing value on every level of the chain, right? Like it's closing the feedback loop for engineers. Engineering managers are doing faster PRs because their PRs are of higher quality, then we really start to see like that information working its way up within the organization. Now, everyone, even the CEO who doesn't have time, he doesn't have 5 minutes to think about this because he's raising money, he's going out and he's selling, but he still needs to know, like, is his engineering team on track? He can take a look and within 5 minutes, because he can get an understanding of what's going on, even if he's not technical.
Yeah. I always thought there's a market fit for a department translator for every enterprise department ever. And if it can start from the engineering department, that would be a nice plus.
Yeah, because when I was at Neo Financial, I worked closely with the marketing team. And it was really interesting for me because I found that everyone has an opinion on marketing because everyone gets marketed to, right? Where you need that translator is really with the engineering team because it's a black box. People don't understand it.
Yeah, it's almost like the Domino's pizza, how they have like a loading bar on, when your thing is going to be ready. Uber Eats kind of does that too, where it's like you get a little widget that pops up and it just is like, okay, like we're almost there. No, we're not there. If you kind of boil it down, it's the same effect of just like, look, like you don't understand what's happening behind the scenes, but like just know like this is where we're at with things. It's perfect for, those higher level team members or, clients that have absolutely no idea what this agency that they just hired is actually even doing for them, especially if they're paying hourly for those developer hours. They'll probably get a lot of peace of mind seeing that, okay, like they know how much they're spending, they know where the hourly is, but to see next to it, like, yes, the hourly is going up, but look, progress is on track.
And I know so many founders that are experts in their field, but don't know anything about technology, don't have a really good CTO, and honestly are going to agencies who are not very good. They have no way to really vet these agencies. They have no way to monitor their work. And at the end of the day, they're getting a subpar product and they need to get the work redone.
Okay, Thomas, that's a great idea. We're running out of time here though, and we got something from Runda that we want to share. So Runda, can you hit us with a rapid fire idea?
Okay, I'm going to start with a question. Who has ever lent out their stuff to anyone ever?
Yeah, Yeah, money and things.
Yeah, because like there's so much stuff that's like being lended out and then borrowed by people every day, whether if it's like tools, notes, books, or even money sometimes. All we really think about is they kind of have to either write it down or put it in their calendar reminder on their iPhones until the very end of the day that it's time to return to stuff. You might just end up with like endless text messages with your buddies trying to reschedule time to collect on that thing that they owe you on. And with all this awkwardness, I smell opportunity. So the easiest way for me to think about like a fintech app is just create a stuff lending app. I'm gonna call it the Spotter. So with the Spotter, as individuals, you can create a public profile, or maybe it's like friends view, and you would populate this profile with a list of stuff that you own yourself that's available for your friends to borrow. Maybe like for free at like a 2 to 4 weeks range or whatever, however you set it. And then if someone returns it late, they'll have to pay an interest that's automatically charged. So in order to sign up, you have to put in a validated credit card or like put in credits at first into this app to validate your profile. And then if someone hasn't returned their stuff for over 3 months, the borrowing party will have to immediately pay up the full market value that's already prearranged within the app to validate your profile. So it's actually that kind of automated smart contract, but in the form of the app, because every day I feel like my sweater is probably all gone by all the past girlfriends. But now there's also a way that would probably do up the campaign content and the narrative of this tagline, which is wealth in your network. So playing on this phrase of your network is your net worth, this app is like the little manifestation of that, where the more friends that you know, the more stuff that you'll have access to. You'll never really have to really buy like a lawnmower realistically, because you would just always borrow your friends at like 2 day period at a time whenever you need it. Or maybe someone has a chainsaw, and then instead of calling an arborist, you can just like get the chainsaw. There's just a lot of marketing opportunities from this app perspective. I can just like easily think of all the content that you can make all day with it.
So it's an interesting concept insofar as I would love to have an inventory of all my stuff. And if I am nice enough to, and I trust my friends enough, right? Like I'm happy to have them borrow it. And right, if they don't return it, then we have a way to kind of get some of that back. For me, the interesting challenge here would be I'm lending out my stuff. Obviously, I'm on this application, so I'm lending out my stuff a lot, right, to people. If it were just a one-off, a two-off, then I wouldn't need an application for that, right? I would need to have like a threshold of stuff lending to need this application. To the point where if I go to Jim and I ask to borrow his lawnmower and he's like, yeah, I need you to sign up for this application. I need you to put your credit card in. I need you to go through all of these steps. All of a sudden I was like, I could just go to Home Depot and rent this thing if it's a problem. Is this a problem? Right? And so managing that narrative and that storytelling around why you should do this and not just be a business, right? Like if we're going after the casual, I'm lending out a toolkit to someone once in a while, then I don't know how often. I feel like this app is overkill. It's where we have this real sharing economy within your group of friends that I think that this becomes interesting. And then there's that trust. Like if we have that social contract between all of us that we're just going to share our stuff with each other and we just need to track where that is, that's fine. But it starts becoming interesting once we're like, well, if you're 3 months late, we're going to charge you for it.
I was just gonna say this is like perfect for me because I do like rent out things, but also sometimes I'll like let people use some of my like film gear stuff for free where they just like need a camera or something like that. And, you know, sometimes what you're giving to someone is just at a level of value that you kind of know, like, if they break it, they wouldn't even be able to afford to replace it for you if they don't give it back. So it kind of makes me wonder if maybe a different angle to take here is is basically just saying like, okay, like this is a high value thing that I'm lending you. I just want you to put your credit card like on file for, you know, for this thing, or, you know, almost like it's a deposit and then you get the deposit back once, you know, it's been verified to have been returned by the person who, you know, lent it out.
Yeah. I think it is like a barrier to on-ramp the initial users onto this platform to get that like over that credit card hoop. It would have to be because they already have it on file for whatever reason, or maybe like you would introduce it progressively once you get the initial user base until like that user base churns with a hit on like, oh yeah, validate your profile with your credit card information to be able to actually borrow other people's stuff. Whichever way it's possible, I think like honestly, like I think Neighborly should just like do this. Sorry, Nextdoor. It's called Nextdoor.
Okay, I'll have to check out Nextdoor, but this sounds like a pretty good lower barrier to entry idea that somebody could pick up and maybe build with the fewest resources out of all of the ones that we went through here today. So for that reason, I really like this one. Thomas, I'm gonna throw it to you just as we end the episode. Any like where can we find you online? Anything else you want to say to our listeners before we go?
Yeah. So first of all, Josh, Runda, thanks a lot for having me on. This is a blast. I love just going back and forth on ideas and some of the things that we're working on here. Super fun. If anyone wants to continue talking about things that are going on within the fintech or the development space, feel free to reach out to me at thomas@midaslabs.ca. You can also grab me on LinkedIn just under Thomas Battle, or contact us through midaslabs.ca's contact form. Yeah, this has been a blast. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay. Well, Thomas, thanks for joining us today, and to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in once again. Go out there, maybe create some of these ideas. Message us if you have any ideas yourself. We're all on LinkedIn. Anyways, yeah, that's all. Thank you for tuning in, everybody.